I invited struggle in a way. Like it was like I went broke by choice.
I have been living and surviving every month off faith that I'm gonna get work and do this, and I'm doing very well in a very expensive city.
If you can't pay your bills with music, sucks. But you better find a way to pay your bills.
I said it's nothing to me, ain't new to the ring. I son anybody who wanted with me. The stupidity, if it's I and it's you, then one of these things is losing to me. Who could it be? Will it be you? Indubitably.
Host Vader, the undisputed podcast for the independent music industry, with your hosts Clef Wonder, Jordan, and Calvin II.
What up?
What it do? Yo.
We back. As a matter of fact, we getting right into that.
Hey.
Work-life balance. In this industry, music industry, independent in the music industry.
Yeah. Tongue twister.
And I'm gonna start it off because basically, me and my production partner Kofi, we would probably rate ourselves in each other's top 5 of survivalists when it comes to LA, because there used to be a thing that we say, or kind of still say, is that 2 years really is going to show who's got the gumption to stay in this joint. It's not like
this joint being LA.
This joint being LA, because it's not like New York where it's like you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. It's like
I've been in both. LA is harder.
LA is harder. It's like
LA is harder.
It's just like LA is one of those things like if you can make it here, who gives a fuck about anywhere else? Basically. So no, and
that's actually kind of funny.
But yeah, so we did some things like me and Kofi, like we obviously there's 3 of us, but when Q, our third member, he's Korean, when he went back to serve his martial law in South Korea, we decided to move out to LA. We drove all the way here from Boston in like a day, basically.
Dang.
Like a little cargo van, put all our shit in there, whatever didn't
Hold
fit.
up in a day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in a day of actual driving, basically, we left on April 1st because our lease was done. I let anybody, whatever I left, I told you can have it in my house. I told the guy that, whatever. We're leaving. I left the house in charge of this people. I used to manage this house over there. But shout out Roseway. Everyone who's ever lived on Roseway in Boston. We left there April 1st. Stopped by my mama's house in Detroit for to just eat, take a nap.
It sounds longer than a day.
Well, I said only a day of driving.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Like we slept over there in Detroit overnight. And we left at dawn. We drove all the way from Detroit to Denver in 16 hours nonstop. Well, stopping for gas, but And then we went from Denver to LA in the worst way ever. And that's another story for another day.
Mm-hmm.
But after we got here, man, it was really hard. And you know what? I'm not going to say certain names because I know there's some people who are part of our humble beginnings in LA that's probably not even over some of these situations. But we had a hard time with work-life balance because we obviously come from degree programs. We come from having jobs. We come from just abandoning those positions and saying, we're going to just go to LA and do this, nothing else. And then, that's not what happened. So, and I'll be very specific. So essentially, when we got here, we kept the van for like another 3-4 days. Like we had it for a week rental. That's why we rushed to get across the state lines to California so we can have this van longer because we had no other car at that time. It was just like until we are in the spot, moved in, we need to keep this van. So we had to basically, we stayed in like Motel 6s and stuff like that. And we got a week rate. We didn't have that much money. So we just went to Little Caesars and bought like 6 boxes of pizza and lived off of them for days at a time because they were $5 back then.
Y'all nasty. You just let the pizza sit there and get stale? I would just bought the pizzas one at a time when I needed it.
Well, that's what I meant.
Oh,
that wasn't clear. Yeah, I
He
mean,
was like,
we bought like
about
we-
6
we-
pizzas. I was like,
I'm just saying, like we went through
damn.
about 6 boxes of pizza by that time.
Okay.
Yeah, you
Thank
know,
you for
yeah, my
clarifying.
bad. And then like because it was $5 and $5, it was 1 box pizza. 1 pizza feeds 2 Negroes.
Heck yeah.
So and we were supposed to work it out with these 2 girls that we had, Kofi's friends that he already knew before we got here. I gave them some of our information, let them know income and situations like that. They needed a place to stay. So there's like, we're going to find a place. Now, we're back in Boston when we decided to do this. They're already living in LA.
Mm-hmm.
Those 2 girls like, we're going to find a place. And, we're going to live 2 to a room and y'all go live 2 to a room. And then we can afford this place because rent is high. The rent is too damn high in LA. So at that point, we was going to do that. We found out when we got here that unfortunately, these girls were not on the up and up. The manager was like, "Oh, you know that both of them just been evicted, right?" I was like, "No, I don't know that." Yeah,
No,
they
didn't
applied for this under your credit, right? And I was like,
Oh,
"No, I do not know."
Wow. Oh, LA got real personal with you.
Real quick, and then like I got real mad, and I called them. Nobody picked up. But you know what happens when people don't pick up the phone? Voicemail happens. I forgot that. So with my emotional, pissed off self, I said a lot of things that one of these girls heard later. And I'm not going to lie, I still have nightmares about how I made this girl feel. Like she called Kofi crying about everything. Now here's the thing. I tell my wife this all the time. She's like, she should have boo-hooed for days. So
Boo-hoo for days. Feel bad.
At what she did, I was like, I get it, but I just like, she just responded in a way like she really never meant, she really thought it was going to really work out. I was like, you thought you was going to hide evictions? Like you
No. I'll say this because I do tell everybody this. Look, I understand that life happens. Life has happened to me. Always communicate. If it's the worst news you could possibly think of, because if not, you're robbing me of the chance to pivot, to actually use the reality of the situation to my advantage. Now you made a situation worse. I'm glad she cried. That was her soul repenting for being a horrible human being and putting other people in her war path.
I want to rehash that in case they ever watch. But I mean, so that's not how bad it got. So and at this point, there's more. We still can't get work done musically. So like we still on hold with that. So our manager, shout out David Jong, he's was a great man. He's the one that brought us out to LA because he's got us our first placement, which was Up and Down on the Shiny record back in 2011, which got us to LA, and we were going to be working in K-pop. So and he said, I got a friend that owns this yogurt shop on Beverly Drive near Rodeo and all that stuff. Y'all can work there in the meantime, and then like when y'all not at work, you got to be in my writing shops doing stuff. And he's like, we're done. And it's like, this is our origin story, at least in LA. We're going to do that. That's not, God was like, well, no, it's not going to be that way. In fact, while we were in the manager's house of that apartment building that we got denied for trying to work out something else, we get an email from the label and publishing company that our manager represents to say he died randomly. He was only like 32 years old, and he had a random brain aneurysm. And we were talking to him days up until that point. We've only been in LA now like 3 days. It's like we left Boston on the 1st. This is April 4th, the day after my birthday. And then we were talking to him, and then we talked to his wife a little bit when we couldn't reach him on the 3rd, and she was like, he's just been a little sick, blah 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 blah. And then on the 4th, it was like he had to go to the hospital, but he'll call you when he get out. And then we got the email later that day. It was like he died on the table. He had a brain aneurysm, and I'm like, jeez. Like it just took us apart because that was like our only personal relationship really out here at that point. Everything was leaning on him. Our apartments fell through and all this stuff. And basically we had to figure out what next. And when basically we just decided, we just looked at each other like, we're not going home. So what do we do now? Because basically we just knew, like, you know, Kofi has engineering degrees. I have these other degrees. We're like, look, we can go home. We can say we failed. We can let all this hit and then never make it back. Or say we go come back and who knows, life happens.
Yeah, it might not be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we just gonna figure this out. So, we lived on the floor a little bit. Long story short, we finally got to a place and we end up living in someone's garage for 2 years. And then what I mean by, we talk about side gigs and stuff like that. At this point in time, it was really hard to get hired for even the basics. I didn't get a job at McDonald's. Like, you'd be surprised how much in LA you can't get a basic job when you have advanced degrees and you moved here and you work in an advanced degree entertainment industry. So if you got degrees that has to do with film, music,
you put those degrees on your McDonald's application.
You put that's what I'm saying.
I might have left
the
those
idiocy of not knowing that you shouldn't put these things on there.
I was about to
they
say,
looking at you like, nigga, you ain't gonna be here that long. They looking at it, and I was like,
I mean, did you just? I would have went across the street to Burger King and just left that off.
We didn't live there. Like, we could only work where we could walk to. Because let's keep it 100. Let's keep it 100. LA,
it's hot.
LA public transportation is trash.
Oh, it's trash.
Trash. So we can only work one bus ride away if we actually wanted to get.
Oh, y'all didn't have a whip at the time.
We didn't have a car. So after we started living really in this garage in like Sylmar, shout out Augusto Manucci.
Sylmar boy.
Basically this is actually a garage where there is basically a closet shade that closes off to the bathroom, and there's no other separation. The kitchenette is a mini fridge and situations like that. And I'll kid you not, me and Kofi stayed in this place 2 years. Mind you, we didn't really have to live there longer than about 14 months. But we just got to the point where we finally started making a little bit of money to save, and we just like, we can't go nowhere because we up all of our credit by this point. Because we had to default on everything when we moved to LA because we couldn't get work in time. So any type of credit, any type of student loans, it's gone, man. Like, we were at that 500 range. We dropped 250 points in just a few months. And it was just like, oh, screw credit. Credit means nothing to us.
Yeah, survival.
Because we mean
more important.
We mean nothing to credit. So it's like, cash is king at this point. You can get nowhere without cash, so save up.
Where were y'all working at this point?
At this point, I was giving blood plasma twice a week at Octapharma in Van Nuys, right across from the studio you used to have at Victory in Van Nuys. At that time, well, I don't think you were there but
no, we were not there.
Yeah.
At that time.
But that's where it was. So I had to go there twice a week, a certain amount of days apart, because legally you only can donate 3 days apart. And if you miss your day, if your iron's low, they'll tell you, oh, you can't donate today. I was like, I need my $50. Yeah, it was only $50. And they put it on their version of a debit card that you can basically only use at places that's going to take that debit card. So I just used it at the grocery store. So we just did that. And then basically after that, I went to the whole Apple One route. And I was like, all right, I just got to get a job. The Apple One is like a job placement place. So they just kept moving me around. I ended up finding out that I actually can type 150 words per minute. Didn't know I could type that fast. So there's like, oh, you're going to do data entry. So I, did data entry. And then after that, I was rushed home to try to make tracks. So like, we would try to do the pursuit of Grammyness and shit like that.
Oh, yeah.
And I was still working, I was working far. Like, this is Agoura Hills and I live in Sylmar. So there was an hour. And then I got a job they finally said, we got a job we can place you in for a whole year. I was like, and I made a promise to myself, like, I'm not working there for more than 1 year. I'm not working there. And it turned out to be Anthem Blue Cross. My mother worked at Blue Cross for 30 years. So at this point, 35 years. So she was just like,
she made the call.
She's happy.
She
like, you got a job.
You don't even know.
I ain't got to worry about, go ahead. Like, just tell them who I'm this, I'm that. And I'm like, I don't want to work here, but I'm not going to work here more than a year, but I'm going to work very well for 1 year because I want all the money. I want all the incentives. I want the overtime and all of the stuff because I want to get the hell out of this garage, And then and that work-life balance at Anthem was the hardest thing in the world because the thing is, it was 2 hours away with traffic. I had to wake up at 6 a.m. just to leave the house by 6:30 in order to get there by 8 a.m. And work didn't start till 9. So I was sleeping in the parking lot for an hour.
Hold on, why did you get there at 8?
Because if you waited to 7:30 to get in that traffic, you wouldn't actually make it to the 9:30. So you had to beat traffic by being there an hour early. And if you wanted to make it there right on time, it was 2 hours and 25 minutes of actual traffic of leaving there like 7:15 or something like that. I forgot what the math was. It was terrible. I figured out the hard way like the first couple weeks, and I was like, I have to leave here very early and just sleep here. Luckily, they served breakfast, had a kitchen and everything, so I just slept there for like 45 minutes, got up, ate breakfast, and went to work. You know, so, and that's how we eventually met Todrick Hall. Because our good friend, Vonzell Solomon, shout out to her and Hope's House in Granada Hills, that church. You know, she was like, oh, Todrick needs somewhere to record right quick. Now, mind you, all we got is one of them Digidesign 002s and in the garage with the C214 AKG something with a. So we don't have
garage band,
right? And we just and they were just like, all right. He's like, I just need to record something right quick. That begins the relationship of us working with Todrick in about 2013 or so, and then through Todrick, we meet Jeeve. Through Jeeve is, you know, producer extraordinaire, guitarist, Santana Records, Tupac Records, what you name it, he's done it. Jeeve introduces us to a gig that he don't want. TV cues.
One man's trash.
One man's trash.
Treasure.
And that led us to basically save enough to get out of there, and we ended up in the Panorama City mega apartment where we built the studio and made all of our dreams come through for like a couple years. Who later, for some reason, Calvin ended up in that same apartment with some other people from Berkeley 6 years later. He was like, ain't this your old crib? Crazy. But that's another story. But
same exact room. Crazy.
What I'm saying with this, with the work-life balance, what I mean by this story, that story was the span of 2011 April all the way through 2014 January. And that's how long it took us to get to the point of being here. And now we know that we're going to actually survive. And we're not even still doing what we want to do. Yeah. We just finally got a job that is in music
stable
to pay our bills. That didn't mean we Ubered still at that point. And after that, that was just a point where we were just like, we're going to make it here. We're nowhere really in this industry at this point. Yeah. But we're now not going home. Yeah. And throughout that whole time, the work-life balance was always in peril because you had to eat. You had to pay rent. But you couldn't say no to a lot of gigs because it was just like, then what are you doing? So you got to show up to Carrie's. You got to show up to Carrie Gordy's and knowing that you're not going to get paid until this record is mastered and sold to a label. Even though we didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
They thought they were about to cash out.
So you end up working 6-7 months. I was like, can we get a stipend? Can we get something?
Right.
Just something just so we can. He like, nah, that I don't want to set that precedent. This is how the music industry works. You're going to get your back end. And when you get your production, when we sell the fucking record. So, right. But anyway, but that's what happened. I was like, so we just like, we got to keep working. We got to keep doing all this other stuff. Like, I'm not even talking about personal relationships. I'm not even talking about love. I'm not talking about girlfriends. I'm not talking about any of that stuff. It's the bare essentials of existing and saying that you are still here, holding your head up to anyone that you meet and saying, yes, I am a producer. Because that's hard to say driving Uber. Yeah. That's hard to say when you're sitting up with a harpoon in your arm, giving up your blood and your plasma. It's like, what do you do? I'm a producer for nigga. What the fuck do you really do?
Nah, what do you do? No, they meant, do you do heroin or crack? Because clearly we need to know.
Because it's not a lot of people in there on the up and up. Like, shout out, I'm sorry, I know there's a lot of people who really worked through and did stuff like Octapharma, did things like giving blood and plasma that turned out to be, titans of industry and very professional. But we know those type of people, we were in there sitting next to people that was going nowhere. And you have to, it comes full circle in life when you start realizing like, am I the same as all of this? Like,
am I my environment?
Like, am I the cautionary tale in LA and just hasn't realized it yet?
Yeah.
You know, like, am I delaying the inevitable? Like, is this like, how does this look? Does this look really bad?
Is this delusion or faith?
Is this delusion or faith?
Are they similar?
Yeah, it's like, and I'm just like,
both.
all I gotta say is just like, when people told us how long it would take, it kind of took that long. And I'm not saying it didn't take that long to blow. Like, great, you can catch fire in the pan all the time, lightning, all the stuff, lightning in the bottle. But the more common story is that you're going to have a bit of a struggle out here in that first 2 years, especially if you're not money bags, especially if you're doing it by yourself. Like, me and Kofi don't really do it without each other. I realized that a long time ago. We was just like, it's because wherever he couldn't pick up the slack at, I could. When I couldn't do this, he could. We didn't have his money. He had it. I didn't have his money. He had it. And that was us for like at least the first 4 years out here. And then finally we got to a place where like, oh, we have savings accounts.
We
have money in the savings. It only took 4.5 years, to not live exactly check to check. Now we're just 2 checks.
Well, what are some takeaways from that and everything? Because it's a cool story, but like, what are some things that piece of advice you would give to somebody that you experienced?
I mean, the main things I take away as far as work-life balance is that you need to sustain yourself in order to be available. Like I've said before, the best ability is availability. If you want to be available for the session, that means that you need to have possibly a laptop. You need to have whatever that you're supposed to do. If you make beats or you produce, you need to have these things. You can't be empty-handed. You also need to take care of yourself to be fresh for this session. Like if you're not sleeping and you're working that much, you're not going to be fresh for this session. This means that you need to find a way. If you can't pay your bills with music, sucks. But you better find a way to pay your bills.
You know what's crazy?
Oh my God.
I feel like what that story really, because I have no real reference point to like having a work-life balance and achieving anything that I wanted to achieve. Like it almost feels, this might sound morbid, but I kind of feel like balance is a myth when I think about it.
Balance is a myth?
That doesn't sound morbid. That's just sound morbid?
So, well, it sounds morbid because, obviously we want to promote the idea of work-life balance and, you know what I'm saying? Like you should have a balance in your life. But like as an artist, as an entrepreneur, I don't know that I've ever, like I'm still to this day trying to think like, do I even have balance now? Or am I just way more comfortable in the imbalance? You know what I'm saying? Like, and what I mean by that is like,
I like that you go deep with stuff.
No,
is that
makes
deep?
sense.
I feel like I be saying like the obvious to myself, but then it's like I'm like I don't know if I'm saying it as clear as
you make metaphysical things really easy to digest.
Oh, that's good because that's what I hope is that it's easy to digest because I don't ever want to be that dude who's talking about shit that only I understand.
That's a great question, and I understood it.
But yeah, no, I think for me, like the only thing that I could say from experience is that there's just this season where you are exhausted and broke and struggling, and you still got to show the fuck up. And there's no balance at all. But that season is what ultimately gets you.
And it's not even going to be just one of them.
Yeah, and there's going to be multiple of those. And like, really that season gets you to a place not where you achieve work-life balance, but where you just get used to that lifestyle. Yeah. And you're like, you know what, this is what it is, and this is the life I chose. But the trade-off is I love what I do. You know what I'm saying? The trade-off is I've built a network and a community of people who understand and are in the same boat. And yeah, I don't know that, I've even achieved balance so much as I've just achieved an acceptance that this is the life I chose. And
I would agree that you don't probably even have balance when it comes to that. And I don't think I would have had balance either because when it comes to it, like especially, I'm using LA specifically because that's where our expertise is. The more common story that actually happens out here are the people who make it, or at least make it to a point of where they are a factor in the industry and they work in this industry professionally. they survive the scary hours. And the thing is, that's all it is. That's all it is. Like, you're surviving the scary hours. Even when you're like doing well, even when you're in this season where you feel like, you know, oh, you got some change, or you got some comfort, or you got some regular work, you're doing this, you kind of see what you want to do the next day, the next week, the next month, what you got plans for, you're making plans next year, next 5 years. You can have that. That doesn't mean that the scary hours are not coming again.
That part.
No, it's that time. Did we talk about that?
Now you just got a cushion
quote.
Yeah.
As far as like he was saying, like, you know, he was doing really good in the 80s and 90s, and he's always doing good. But it was I think you said it, but he was like, it was an interview, and he was like, hey, you know, enjoy these good times because they don't last. And also,
you talking about Tom Hanks?
Yeah.
Tom Hanks,
and he was like, and it was like, in the bad times, like, oh, the bad times don't last either. So being able to weather the storm. What I was gonna say to your thing was like, you know, they say calm seas never made a strong sailor. So it's like you probably did. You do get used to the ups and downs. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell my story. I'll try to condense it and everything. Like, I think the thing that helped me a lot was New York. You know, I was from Detroit, but I was living in New York, working at labels, and then got into acting and whatnot. And that's when I came over to here. And I was so broke in New York. Oh my God! Like, I tell people, I was so broke in New York. I had a cat at a certain point, and I couldn't afford cat food. Now, mind you, cat food was $1. So like, you could go to a dollar store and like get cat food. That was not in the budget. Wow. I remember at a certain point I had to I would wait until Harold's Chicken would close because I could get extra chicken from them, and my cat would eat their chicken bones. Wow. And so he was like, that was it. I was like, okay, I can make this work. I had like maybe $2. I was broke. And it's been, you know, it's annoying at the time and whatnot, but it is something that you're able to go back and like be like, wow, I survived that. Because, you know, I didn't really have a Kofi. It was like I had to figure it out. And it was just like, you know, thank God there were like, you know, you learn how to be resourceful and stuff, especially when you're away and it's like mommy and daddy can't necessarily help you. Or even if they did, like, you know, I wasn't always getting along with my mom at the time. So I remember I knew I could maybe ask her for enough help just to get through. But I was like, it would just be this argument and I would just feel bad and everything. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to just suffer. I'm just going to suffer because I'd rather suffer and know that I got through on my own than like, okay, I had to have this argument for 2 hours to get a little bit of money and I still was in a bad position. I was like, nah, let me just suffer and get through it and whatnot. And it made me stronger and stuff. So coming out here, I did the same thing. It seems like everybody thinks it's going to be one way, specifically when they come out. And then it is quickly shown that it's not going to be like that.
It's not.
I was staying with a friend of family and whatnot, and it was supposed to be for 2 months. Me and my friend came out, and just a lot of interesting things happened to where it was like, all right, we should probably get out of here a lot sooner than that. And thankfully, I did a job right before it was my first big voiceover job, and checks for that started coming in like 2 weeks before and after we got there. So I was able to use those. We got an apartment. We got out. Things were going good and whatnot. And my roommate left like randomly. I tried to keep the apartment going by myself, but I couldn't because I just got there. I wasn't stable enough. And so ended up, and didn't even know anything about life, ended up getting evicted. And it was like and when I tell you, I got like evicted, like the sheriffs came and walked me out, that boy, like the sheriff. And I'm like,
what?
I was like, oh, because I didn't know
Did they think he was somebody else?
No, I got evicted. It was messed up. It was like embarrassing.
I mean, yeah.
I mean,
shit,
it was messed up.
I ain't never.
It was just a whole
I didn't know
thing.
none of that.
No, it was a whole thing because, like, again, I had a roommate that just like left, and I was just trying to keep it. I didn't know. I wasn't as resourceful as I am now. Like now, I'd have Airbnb. I'd have been fine.
Yeah.
Like, I'd have been annoyed.
Well, it wasn't around by then. But you would have figured it out.
I always say that. I'm like, dang, I would have cleaned up.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I was like, you know, thankfully, my good friend, you know, Anita, she was there and everything. She was like, okay, cool. I was able to chill with her for a bit. And 2 weeks later, I had like an apartment in a better part of town, like with a better roommate, and it was just amazing and dope and everything. So it was like, it was this ebb and flow. It was like, I get here, think it's gonna be great. It's not. Then, okay, Jackson, man, I get an apartment. Stay for a little bit. Roommate leaves, boom, eviction. 2 weeks later, bam, we back in it. It's like, okay, hold up. So it's like you said, the scary days come and whatnot, but you kind of learn like, oh, okay, I don't have to let this detail what my experience is and stuff and everything.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be. And those things come like, and they ebb and flow. You're not, you just kind of, it's not that you just kind of do get used to it. And you, like, yo, I think about this, like, and I don't know exactly how true this is for you guys, but since I graduated college, like, I haven't had like a regular job, dude.
No.
I like have been living and surviving every month off faith that like I'm gonna get work and do this. And I'm doing very well in a very expensive city.
Yeah.
I've lived in very nice places. But I'm like, let's think about my friends who have like regular 9-to-5s. And I'm like, oh, they go to a place every day and they know they're gonna get some money and everything. I have no idea where I'm going next week.
Yeah.
But I know it's gonna equal up to more than enough money
to
do the things because I have like my hand in different things and whatnot, and funds come, and it's insane. It's like, it's actually crazy. Yeah, and I'm just so used to it now because again, I've just gone through all these different ups and downs. And you know, of course, did the whole gig thing. I never really got into the Uber Eats. I think I did like 2 days of that, and I was like, eh. But man, Uber and Lyft, my God,
Uber got me saying through. Specifically, you Ubered, but you didn't do Uber Eats. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, I did. Okay. Or Postmates. I tried it for a little bit. I just didn't like.
Too much getting out of the car, double parking.
It was that. It was like, and I know there was a way to do it, but it was like, I think I just didn't have a great game plan from the jump. And if I would have, I might have been maybe better, but I didn't. And so I was like, yeah, let me get on. But yeah, no, man, I remember at one of my lowest point, it was so crazy. Like I just was waiting on some funds, and for whatever reason, they weren't coming in and something was going on. And I just was like, I think sometimes what can get you is the exhaustion of like, oh, I'm not out of this stuff. I'm like another one. And so I remember I was just parked on the side of the road and I was like, I needed funds, but I didn't have it and everything. And then I remembered, I was like, oh, I mean, I do got this Lyft app. I guess it's still active. And sure. And I got like maybe $5 to my name and just like, well, you know, like an eighth of a tank of gas. And I was like, well, I guess I ain't gonna die right here on the side of the road. Let me at least try to turn on the app. Boop, boop, boop. Log in. First ride, $30. Well, that's enough for some gas. Second ride, $20. Okay. And so it's like, boom. So I was like on depression on the side of the road crying because everything was just going wrong. And then it was like, okay, I'm actually gonna be okay. Let me chill. Yeah. Let me chill. And you just worked your way out of the hole. Yeah. Like that.
I can tell you, working yourself out of the hole, what you should do if you don't have a plan is understanding overhead. Calculate your hard overhead and your soft overhead. I always had a hard overhead of like, this is the absolute minimum to live my life. The soft overhead is like, this is the absolute necessary to live my life happy. So not satisfied, just happy enough. Just happy enough, you know, you might eat out once. So it's one of those situations. And I calculated my life in months away. So basically I got to the point where like, okay, now I have 1 month overhead. And now I'm going to keep working. And this is when I was Ubering. It was just like, why are you Ubering? Like, why don't you just do these gigs? I'm like, no, I'm going to do these gigs. But I'm going to Uber because I only have 1 month overhead. And then after a while, I was like, okay, now I got 2. And then, now I finally got paid for this gig. I use none of that. So I keep Ubering. Now I got 3. My whole point was just like, once I get 6 months overhead where I live, I can finally move to a place where after I put the money down and get in there, I'll still have 3 months overhead left for living in that situation. And then I recalibrated from there to like, all right, how do I get to another 6 months? And then when I got to 6 months there, because at that point I was in Woodland Hills, and then that's where you saw me living at Laurel Canyon in that was my first apartment by myself. So I don't know if people know that, but yeah, my first apartment to myself, where I lived by myself, or didn't share a room or didn't share any type of thing, was at the age of 33. It took that long. Because every other time I had to live with somebody, I had to rent out a room here, I had to do this thing. Even if when I lived in millennials have to do that. So, but I operated in that form. And then finally, when things start taking off, records start taking off, then we start getting syncs and stuff like that. Then I started going in quarters. Like, I can't buy certain things, or we can't go on this trip, or we can't do these things until we have these many quarters of overhead. And I tell my wife that all the time. I'm just like, well, I want to do this, I'm going to go that. That requires to have 3 quarters overhead. So right now,
where do you get the calculation of how many quarters a certain thing costs? Just literally the base dollar amount?
Well, basically, I decide what our monthly overhead is, and then so 3 of those is a quarter, and then I decide we need 3 of those, so basically 9 months of overhead in order for you to deplete our overhead by 2 months.
You gotta have 9.
We have to always be over 6 months, period, no matter what. That was the minute. Not 6 months, over 6 months.
Over 6.
So it had to always be in the third quarter somehow. So I was like, we need to have 7 months overhead after we spend whatever we do. So even if we were 10 or 11 months in overhead, but you wanted something mega or something that's going to cost this, or the installments of that, and I was like, yeah, but we're going to be depleted after that. We still need to be, I never want to be closer than 7 months, more than a little bit over half the year, because that's how bad work can stop. And I was just like, if work stopped, I need to know. I need 6 months to get
some
back
shit
to get some shit popping.
And
I don't need 6 months when I'm broke. I mean, get to the 6 months and I still got 1 month left. And I keep trying to tell us, like, I always need that 7 months because I'm gonna need 6 months to make shit happen.
That was like,
if shit
and then
happened.
7, and then the 7th month. Actually, if you take 6 months to get shit popping, that means you need 3 more months to get paid.
Exactly. And the reason why I came up with the 3/4 minimum, like even I got friends that's like, you don't really need 3/4, you need 6. You just need 6 months. I was like, yeah, you got a really nice job.
They don't get it.
The likelihood that you getting fired is different. You also got some stock options. You got all this stuff. Like, you got a really nice job. But when it comes to what we do, we're entrepreneurs. We have our self businesses and so all this other stuff. I was like, nah, I need that 7 months, and this is what I mean, that 9 months, because I'm married. I don't have kids, but I've always known that if my wife got pregnant, she's not working those last 5 months and probably those next 5 months. Or, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm just like, that's 9 to 10 months where she's probably going to, like, not be able to work or do anything. And I'm like, I always want my overhead, my income minimum, or mine plus hers, for the entire time that she would not be working, already saved. And if I'm still working, then it's fine.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously I'm still working. So I'll be like, okay, that's fine. It's fine. As long as I'm still working, we'll supplement it because we saved that much. So ever since that point, ever since we got in this house, like, everything's divided on the fact that, no, we need not. Now, we got more than that now because we've just been saving aggressively. But in case that happened, but she just knows, I'm like, we are never going below 9 months at this point. So whatever you decide that you think we need to stack some more cash first, and then we could do that. Work-life balance is tough, especially if you're in a provider position.
Yeah.
So and I'm like, and this is coming from a point where a man that doesn't have kids even yet. So I already know once the kids show up, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be very strict with these quarters, because then it's gonna be like, oh, it's minimum 4 quarters. I need to be, whatever year I'm in, I need to be in the month of that year next year. Period. Like, it's like, kids are not cheap, especially if you want nice things for them. So
they're not expensive until a certain age. But little tip.
Yeah.
So, but you know, I'm not at
quick
that
tip, put any and everything that you want on the kit, on the registry. Any and everything you want. Don't hold back, because you'll be surprised. Because we got like 98%. And it was a lot of pricey stuff on there.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm sure, like, you know, leave some stuff in the comments. Everybody got a story. Everybody got something. Especially if you out here, especially hit us up.
Except for Jordan, he was very sheltered, and
no, I mean, like he said, he made a good point about, like, you know, some of us
Some of us have real problems.
There is nothing hanging in the balance besides yourself. So you're never going to be balanced.
Now, I was actually thinking about that. I don't want to extend this past what it needs to be, but I was thinking, like,
share your privilege.
In a lot of ways, I was privileged.
You were.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing.
In a lot
like,
of ways. Yeah.
I've never hated people that are privileged. It's like, what do you want for your kids?
But that doesn't mean, and I think it goes without saying, like, privilege isn't absent of struggle. You know what I'm saying?
Nah,
like,
you work.
That's
one thing. Ain't nobody said that about you.
There was definitely struggle.
That boy work.
There was definitely struggle. But then I think really just when I think about my origin story of LA, like, I was really set up in a different way to where it did not feel like, I think a lot of people, LA is this big leap of faith, you know, or you have rose-colored glasses and you come and then you're rudely awakened. And I'm like, wow. I guess for me, because I started coming to LA when I was 16, and I already had like an acting agent, and I was like, I had already sort of built somewhat of a momentum to step into when I came out here. I also met you guys before I moved out here. So coming up here, it's like I already even had a security blanket of like community, a sense of community. And then it felt like I stepped right into like a realm of opportunity, to where for me it actually hit much later. You know what I'm saying? Like the reality and the struggle, it was like I feel like I had like 4 solid years of like maybe living in the delusion, and then it all hit me, you know, maybe in like my mid-20s when I was like, and it was more of a self-discovery thing. You know what I'm saying? It was more of like which we talked about before, like, who am I beneath all this? That's, you know what I'm saying? And like, and on top of that, like, what do I really want out of life? You know what I'm saying? And like abandoning maybe things that looked optically cool but didn't satisfy me. You know what I'm saying? And then it's almost like I invited struggle in a way. Like, it was like, I went broke by choice, in which so in a way it's like, can you really even call it that? But it's like, it's like I wanted that sense of like, I can sustain myself. You know what I'm saying? Like, I could build myself up. Like, I can create a life from like my soul and my spirit, like a life that accommodates like who I feel like I am inside versus like knowing I can perform and tap dance for a bag. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I know that went weird. It went a weird direction.
No. But no, it wasn't weird in a bad way. It was just I felt it. It was like, damn, man. I hope, like, I don't know.
So it was like almost self-induced struggle in a way, but it's like, honestly, it's the struggle that built a me that I'm like way more proud of. Like, I can look at who I am now and be like, oh, I respect you. I don't know that I could have said that sooner.
Do you think that that's maybe, this is slightly related, but, and if there's no correlation, it's fine. But do you feel like that's maybe why sometimes people that are privileged like will go to the hood and like try to, you know, because they maybe want that struggle, that earned sense of accomplishment or something? Not saying that there's a correlation with that with you, unless there is.
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, I started gangbanging during that time. You know what I'm saying? I started selling my body for crack, bro. No, I'm kidding. No, for sure. Yeah, I think that, you know, depending on how you're built, because I know some people who...
Also, your case was not extreme. You weren't putting yourself in danger.
No.
You were just like...
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let me actually step away from this thing and figure out, do I want it?
Well, like, do I want it, and what's sustainable? You know what I'm saying? And like, there was a lot of layers.
If I don't get this thing I want, am I still okay to live, or I gotta?
Yeah.
And some people don't know that. Like,
but to your point, I think that is a valid point though that you're making. In that, like, I think that, you know, like I said, depending on how you're built, because some people don't have this. Some people are just like, I'm good and I just want to be good forever, and I don't care about, like, for me, I've always been somebody who really cared about like my inner man and like who I am. So if you're built that way, and you're also somebody who like really wants to take control of your life, and you do identify as an entrepreneur or whatever, I do think that you have to go through that season of like proving it to yourself. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's that for sure.
I like that. I like that a lot.
You gotta want it.
If you want to be a boss, you know what I'm saying? You gotta like
try it. Like, and you know, I'm just glad that, like, you know, from all stories and whatnot, we put ourselves in a position to where we could fail and everything. We're just like, okay, like the mindset that y'all had coming out, it was like, okay, well, there's no real risk. It's like if everything fails, I could just do something else.
it's not my privilege to tell Kofi's story, but even before meeting Kofi in Boston and Berkeley, like he left. Kofi was set up. He had a job that he started before he graduated undergrad in engineering. So by the time he got there, he was already trained and ready to work on the floor, and then basically making bigger money. He had like crib and stuff. So it's like, you know, Carl, like by the time I met him, all of that had changed because he gave that whole shit up because he got tired of going in that office every day. He's just like, and coming back home and spending his last blinking moments trying to make music and stuff with his friends and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he was just like, I couldn't do it anymore. And it's just like, I clearly don't want this other thing.
Yeah.
So
I definitely, we might have to get him in here to talk.
So
about
we kind of have, actually, so I would say then our stories are very similar in that way. It's just like the timeline and
the timeline's different. Like I'm like he did make it hard for himself. Like it was different from him and me is that obviously I was already in the music industry. I was giving up on being a professional trumpet player and all being in the Big Five orchestra or even any type of orchestra at that point because of the injuries I had. So I was giving up on that versus he was giving up on the fact that it's like, I'm not going to be my dad. I'm not going to do this job, this engineering stuff. I don't want to do it. I'm not like this, you know, I'm just not going to do it. You know, and you know, him being Ghanaian and stuff like that, or Ghanaian, however you want to say it, that's not copacetic. That is not kosher. Just be like, let me give up this.
Like, Dad, I don't want to be an engineer. I want to be an engineer.
You know, highly safe, highly recession-proof job to be a musician of sorts. Like basically, like sorts.
Like, that's kind of crazy because where I relate to that, so take out engineering and insert like commercial actor.
Yeah.
You know, or take out engineering and insert like songwriter for like tweeny pop artists. You know what I'm saying? And it's like the difference is people, I think, consider that as like those things are aspirational jobs. Like they consider that already unconventional and not a 9-to-5. But that was my reference point when it came to like doing something that was unfulfilling to me. See what I'm saying? So it's like, whereas maybe like somebody might look at it as like, you giving up, you know, an acting agent, giving up, you know what I'm saying? Like consistent incomes in the realm of doing something that you love. But it was like, that was my reference point. So it's like, I relate to that in terms of like, that was my engineering, you know what I'm saying? And so for me, but I was trading that musicianship, and to be a musician for me was like to be a artist. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I wanted, I think, more than anything, was to know like, I'm an artist. Like I am somebody who I would aspire to be if I wasn't me. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's all kind of the same stuff.
Man, it's crazy. I definitely agree with what you said at the top and everything. Like, hey, that 2-3 years, if you can make it past that. The thing I say to people when they come to LA and whatnot, like, hey, first, welcome. So it's an interesting place.
It ain't for everybody.
It ain't for everybody. Nah, but it's a thing where basically you're gonna meet a lot of people. Some of them are weird. Don't take it too personal.
Sometimes you're gonna be the weirdo.
Yo, they were weird before you got here. They're gonna be weird while you're here, and they're gonna be weird after you leave if you do. So don't take it too personal. And just, you know, everybody has their own story in Hollywood. Everybody has their own thing of how things are gonna go. So if something happened really good for somebody, that doesn't mean it's gonna happen for you good. And if somebody had a horrible time, that doesn't mean it's gonna be horrible for you. Like everybody has their own thing. Cause sometimes, you know, people have these scary ghost stories and whatnot. And it's like, oh man, is that gonna happen to me? Nah, your story might be completely different.
Facts.
But definitely I just tell people to like find a tribe. One of the things that I think that has helped all of us is, you know, especially you, Clef, is just finding your tribe and finding a group of people, because most of us are away from our families out here. And so finding a group of people that you can rely on. Like I got evicted, my homegirl Anita was right there. Like I love her to death for that, because it was like she was just like so cool. Like, oh yeah, just come over right now. Like whatever, grab your stuff. Where you at? The one reason I'll say that it's like harder than New York, and I'll leave off with this, is like in New York, everything is like you have to kind of outwork people physically. It's like you got to get up early, work hard, go to sleep late, and everything. And it's like a lot of this. But a lot of times, for the most part, you'll see the fruits of your labor. Or, you know, you're very it's okay to be outspoken there, so you can call people on not seeing the future labor. Like, yo, I did XYZ for you, blah, blah, blah. I want my stuff. And that is perfectly normal. And they're like, well, he did do XYZ for you. He wants his stuff. Like, yeah, we all agree. LA is a little bit different because it's not so much of a physical battle as it is a mental and spiritual battle. Because you have to deal with the mental ups and downs of working hard on something, it actually turning out to be a mirage, and then everybody looking like you're crazy for being upset about it.
Yeah.
You gotta be like, hold up, what? And they're like, they're just used to it. And so the mental dexterity and the spiritual work it takes to be okay with that and not let that, get you down, it's not easy and whatnot. So it's more, you have to have a more inner strength to survive in LA than maybe you do in New York, where it's more of an external strength. I'll say this, I commend anybody who even tries, because I'd rather at the end of my life say, oh well, than what if. Ooh, think about it, like just try.
I think we can drop the mic on that.
Yeah,
that was pretty good.
Please drop my mic. Oh, man. My name is Calvin.
Ain't for everybody.